the impact that Indian ITs are going to take because of this development is significant, and therefore we should definitely discuss this on the show. Thank you so much for that insight. I'm being joined by Rahul Jain, Director Research at Dolat Capital, and Gaurang Parekh, immigration lawyer. Thank you so much for joining us, and we have Neeraj Shah also, who's going to participate in this conversation. Let me open the stage by asking a couple of questions that we can start by pondering upon. I'll start with asking, how might the $100,000 fee affect smaller startups or non-tech industries relying on H1B workers like healthcare or engineering? Rahul, I'd like to start with you. Why don't you take this up first?
Yeah, basically, this kind of charge completely takes away the cost arbitrage, if that is the perspective out here for the employer, as well as for somebody who is asking for this kind of an replacement of the workforce. But if it is purely from a specialized skill which does not exist, it's more of a cost impact, and this would basically increase the cost by roughly 65% for that resource, basis the average cost that we typically see for the employer on that H1B thing. But of course, it is debatable in terms of which industry, how much is the total experience, and other variable factor like that. But safer to assume if you were doing a purely cost arbitrage by hiring an H1B Indian versus hiring local, the entire arbitrage would be taken care by this penalty which they have imposed.
Up to you. And from a perspective of IT outsourcers, this is Neeraj here. Good afternoon. From a perspective of IT outsourcing companies, right, the Infosys, Accentures of the world, one view is emerging that could it be possible to hire a worker out there for additional 20-30,000 as opposed to pay the visa fee? So could that possibility open up? But is that a big margin hit? Because we all know that the productivity differences that exist between both sets of workers due to cultural differences. Nothing wrong about it, but just that it exists. So, are margins perceivably at risks for Indian IT outsourcing companies?
Yeah, I mean, we have to take neither something into consideration. The fact like we are as if we assume the real extreme, which is like the H1B number of applicant has to stay the same number of people each company, and assuming the customer is not taking or absorbing any of such incremental cost, the impact on overall earning could be up to 2 to 3%. That's the maths that we have done. Now, of course, in case some H1B is replaced by outsourcing, if some H1B costs are borne by the customer, is it also compensated by more volume shift in form of outsourcing in other segments of offering? Then probably some part of it would be mitigated. So that way we could say it's like up to 3% of earning for tier one company. That's what our initial thought process is.
Okay, just before I get in Gaurang Parikh in, so Rahul, you would believe that the impact of this move is to the extent of 2-3% of earnings, and therefore the relative reaction could be to the extent of 3-4-5%. That's it.
Yeah, ideally, yes. In fact, other than this, I would at least think positively, even from the perspective that possibly this is the only hit they want to give it to us. And to that extent, the higher act, which is already being talked about, may take a back seat. If that happens, then probably it's a net nothing that could have happened versus what was the initial thought process.
Okay. And we'll talk about this. But Malik, I want to ask one question into Gaurang Parikh before you take over. So Gaurang, welcome to the show as well. And thank you for waiting by patiently. But how do you see this? Because when I was reading a lot of global publications, they all seem to suggest that this will be taken up in the courts, will be challenged, and therefore there could be some midway resolution. In fact, if I'm not wrong, there is a provision for, in the case of national interest as per the US, for this to be dealt with a case by case basis. But your initial thoughts?
Yeah, this is going to be challenged by in the court of law. by the tech companies or startup companies, it is going to be challenged because this is very high amount of fees which Donald Trump has pronounced, and this is going to affect their industry in a lot. So, and another thing is that there is he has said that anyone who is out of USA before 21st of September, he will have to enter with paying $1 lakh fees for H1B. Now, this is something very bad, and people who are stuck, or the H1B visa holder was stuck up in India for some special reason, they don't have a flight to board for USA. Each and every flights are booked. I have received so many inquiries since morning, since 7 o'clock in the morning, that what should we do. I've advised them you should board first flight to the USA, but there are no flights available. But the good thing will happen that startups which are opening their business in USA from India, they will rethink their strategy and they will start opening their business again in India.
Okay, Gaurang. I'd actually also like to ask you, could this fee prompt reciprocal measures from countries like India, such as restrictions on US workers or companies operating there? Because let's also remember that Indians, not only do they dominate the IT space in America, but also we contribute significantly to the international student pool. And a six-figure levy would be completely sort of unaffordable for most of the students that travel abroad and then end up getting the H1B visa as a natural process to work over there. And this completely shuts the door for them. What do you think India could do? And would India do something?
No, India will not. There won't be any reciprocal fees from Indian side, because India requires specialty occupation workers in India. India needs US technology. So I don't think so there will be any reciprocal fees on Indian US US foreigner coming to India. But this order is surely be going to be challenged in the court of law, 101%.
Okay, then I'd like to take your insight historically as well, because what historical precedents exist for executive actions on visa fees, and how have courts typically ruled on their legality?
See, I tell you, the recent judgment of the Columbia University, where Trump had ordered stopping of the funds and everything, the Supreme Court of US has put a stay order on it. So that is the biggest example in the recent past. This way, by approaching to the court, they can put a stay order on this such kind of proclamation.
Now, Rahul, I want to bring you into this conversation. The other aspect is whether there is any kind of an impact on the near-term deal pipeline. Do you foresee that there could be any risk to the deal pipeline by clients, as they themselves do not know that whether the IT companies get into a conversation to pass on the additional cost to them? Can they logically take on the cost? Will there be offshoring to Canada or nearby centers or back to India? So there's a bit of a flux right in the system. Can that delay the order pipeline?
That to maybe Neeraj, in few cases it might happen here or there, but that is not something which could be a big detrimental in my point of view, because what I essentially see is that the thing that needs to be done needs to be done. Do you have a good alternative compared to the Indian vendor? The answer is no. So the clear advantage in terms of cost, irrespective of this new charges, would mean that the work eventually has to come to us both from a capability as well as cost point of view. But yes, if there is so much uncertainty in general, including this particular aspect, will it impact overall decision making process? Yes, it would definitely do to some degree. But this proclamation which came yesterday, even if you look at in greater detail, it talks more about American company hiring in India to skip American employment. So it more talks about American company not hiring enough Americans rather than Indian companies not hiring enough in America. So to that degree, I think this is definitely going to be an impact, but is it
Right.
a game changer? It's not.
Right, right, right. Okay, we have 6 minutes on the show. I'll just have to come in. But Rahul, appreciate that point. I just want to get in Gaurang onto that point that you mentioned, Rahul. Gaurang, there are a couple of notes that I read. I'm not saying Rahul's view is that, but a couple of his peers have written that could there be a possibility that there will be more work that moves from people on site to offshore. Now, we've seen a deviation from this over the last 8 years since Trump's first term. Could we see this re-emerge? Is that a possibility? Why or why not? Very quickly, Gaurav.
Yeah, the work will move from US to India or China or Canada. It has moved. A lot of people are being hired in Canada instead of USA. So work is they are working offshore instead of on site. So it will move.
Okay, okay, all right.
I
Just
would like to add one thing. This is a renewable fees. So every year they are going to, if they find that it is not profitable or it is not viable, then they are going to either they are going to ban it or remove it, or they are going to continue it. So it's a renewable fees. It's not a per every year they are doing it.
okay. Just hold on, gentlemen. We have my colleague Rishabh also joining us with more details. Now, in a frantic response to the H1B executive order, tech powerhouses like Meta and Microsoft are urging thousands of visa-holding employees to rush back to the US. And internal mail seen by NDTV Profit reveal that Meta is advising H1B and H4 status holders to remain in the country for at least 14 days until practical applications of the new rules are clearer. Let's go across to Rishabh for more on this. Rishabh, over to you.
Right. This is a major human interest story as well. There's a large angle of heightened nervousness, heightened anxiety among the Indians that are employed by big tech in the US. They are, of course, a lot of internal communications being sent by their employers, the likes of Meta, Intel, Microsoft, Amazon, all of them urging their H1B employees to either stay put in the US for at least the next 14 days, and some have actually asked employees to stay put for the foreseeable future, or if they are currently outside the US, to return within the next 24 to 26 hours. So this, of course, a reason for concern for this very large community that is employed largely in the STEM fields, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields in the US. What we're seeing is that the likes of Microsoft have also asked employees to stay in the US to avoid potential denial of re-entry. That is becoming a major cause of concern for them as well. What we're seeing is that H1B holders, about 70% of all H1B visas are actually held by Indians. So this is a very large issue and a large sort of cause of concern for this tech diaspora that lives in the US. We'll keep tracking what these companies guide employees to do as well.
Sure, Rishabh. Okay. Rishabh, thanks so much for that. Well, last couple of questions really on the show before we wrap up. Rahul, to you, is there a differentiation between the business impact for a large cap or a large number of employers employing IT company versus mid-sized companies? That's something that's appeared in a couple of notes too. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of absolute count, given their size, definitely the dependence is way higher for the top one or two name more than anyone else. And if you have to replace, augment those roles, let's say for a mid-sized company, if that count is 200 or 300, it's always easier to augment that to 300 opportunity versus for a tier one who might have to do it for 2 to 4,000 H1B holders. So of course, to that extent, it would be easier to mitigate in smaller company, both in terms of replacement or absorbing versus the tier one name. But there in case of tier one, their ability to pass it on to their customer or absorb part of the pain could be higher. So I would not differentiate either way that this is good for or this less worse for A versus B.
Okay, interesting. Mr. Parekh, I'd also like to get you into this. We have last few minutes left on the show. What would your closing comments be? Because you started with saying that this decision will most likely be challenged. I'd like you to continue on that thought, please.
So the companies, the IT companies or US companies who have established in USA, they can challenge this order proclamation as it is specified in their constitution itself that Trump, the president, can't make such kind of orders on his own. He has to take the approval from the Congress, and then only he can pass such kind of orders. Both the orders, like golden visa also, and the hiking of the visa fees. So either it will have to go through the Congress order, or it will be challenged by the court. It will be challenged in the court. So in both the ways, it has to pass the passing of the Congress and the US court.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we had for this discussion. That was Rahul Jain, Director Research at Dolat Capital, Neeraj Shah, the Markets Editor at NDTV Profit, and we also had Gaurang Parekh getting us all the legal perspective to this very important matter. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us in this conversation and giving us a lot of insights and points to ponder upon.